Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin and I will be your host. So today I'm looking at the Bitcoin chart and I'd like to measure the percentage drops that took place on the B pattern correction. So I have a thesis, and that thesis is that Bitcoin throughout its history has produced two basic corrective structures. One I labeled A, and what that involves is an initial peak. Then after that initial peak, you have three waves down to a capitulation point, and it ends in a V bottom. On the pattern B, it's very similar. It has an initial peak and then three waves down to a capitulation point, and those three waves on pattern Bs, they can be harder to detect. At the capitulation point, instead of doing a V bottom, it does a bounce, and then after that comes the recovery. So that is my thesis. So I would like to go back and examine through the history of Bitcoin all the B patterns and measure the percentage declines that took place to see what is kind of a normal percentage drop, something that is within the realm of normalcy, and then compare what is happening today to that. So before we get started, I'd like to point out that I am not a financial advisor, so nothing I produce, I suggest here or say here should be construed as investment advice or financial advice. That would be wrong. That's out of my league. All right, so let's get started. So let's go back to the very, very first one that took place. All right, so here is the first B pattern that took place, and it took place at the very beginning of Bitcoin pretty much. The decline started in November 2010 and ended essentially in December 2010. So it's a very quick pattern that took place, and it's very undefined. It's primordial. It doesn't have a lot of clarity in this picture, in this fractal, because it happens so fast. But you have the initial decline, and you have 1, 2, 3 bounces, and then you have that initial B bounce that makes it a B bounce, and then you have the recovery. This one is a little different too. It declined right here. It reached its capitulation point here versus typically around here. So if you measure this decline from peak to trough, it's 71.82%. So that was the first decline. And by the way, there has been 3 of these pattern B fractals that have been completed. We are working on number 4. So the first one is 71.82%. Let's go to the next one. So here is the next one that took place. And again, you see that, by the way, this took place in June 11th. The decline started, and once it completed its initial, the final bounce that led to its recovery was that happened in November 2011. So there's more to this picture here. The definition, there's more definition in it. You have your initial peak, and then your decline, your bounces to the bottom, 1, 2, 3, and then here's your distinctive B bounce that makes it a B pattern. And if you measure from the top roughly to the bottom, I get, you know what, I'd like to adjust this a little. Let's see. So I roughly get 93.72. This was a whopper of a decline. This is the largest B pattern decline in the Bitcoin history. So a 93.72% decline. That's a lot more than the 71. All right, let's go see the third one. Okay, so here is the third B pattern decline. Again, here's that distinctive B bounce, and then you have the 3 bounces or waves down, and then the initial peak. So going forward, initial peak, 1, 2, 3, and then that distinctive B bounce that led to the recovery after. So this one started in November 2013. The decline started, and at the end of that bounce, it was that took place in August 2015. So this took a while to complete. There's a lot more definition to this fractal. And the decline I measure at 87% drop. So that's a pretty decent one. Again, not as extensive as the 93. So this one's in the middle. So that brings us where we are today. Okay, so here we are today. What I'd like to do is measure how much of a decline has currently happened. So what I measure is roughly 63.29%. It could be a little more, a little less. So there is no historical precedent for a decline this shallow, which leads me to think that there's more to come. There's a further drop. Now, in my previous video, I talked about how, based on the size of this fractal here, I could see something in the 70s playing out, a decline into the 70s, which would bring the Bitcoin price into like 20,000, give or take, maybe the high teens, low 20s. I think that's a possibility based on the way things are going now. I also pointed out in my last video that sometimes parts of a fractal can be much more exaggerated or less so than the other historical renditions of that same pattern. So for instance, this in one could be much shorter, and another one it could be much longer, but it's still the same basic pattern, same basic shape playing out. So the amount that a part of a fractal plays out can affect the price. So what I'm saying is, if it goes down, this could be exaggerated and go down further to 80-something%, or it could be less and it could be barely at 70%. So fractal parts and sizes can vary from fractal to fractal, but it's the same basic pattern. But based on the overall picture, I could see something in the 70s. I could be wrong. We'll find out. If you found value in this video, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. I put out videos on a regular basis, so if you hit that subscribe button, you can be notified of when I put out content. Hit that little bell button. You can also follow me on Twitter at Chart Historian. I post regularly there as well. I'm a new channel, so any help you can give me by likes and follows, it really means a lot to me. I've been doing chart analysis, technical analysis for many years, and I put an emphasis on fractals and patterns. So if you find interest in that, please do follow me. I hope you catch my next video. Have a great day, and bye for now.